What is going on, everybody? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today it is 10 p.m., but I promise y'all a video every day. We're going to be getting another Mock the Mock in here because we are going to be jumping into deep dives ASAP. I have class that ends on Wednesday, and then I'm off for the rest of the week, so I'm going to be getting a lot of fun content in that time. So if you guys are new, we'd love for you guys to stick around. It's the off season. I know it is what it is, but there's a lot of really cool stuff. This actually just came out 13 hours ago. You get to see it right there. Only reason why I'm doing this type of content right at the moment, but you know, we have to have a little bit of fun here, right? So also watch this. You guys are going to see this live. I'm going to adjust the size. There we go. Let's get right into this though. So starting off with the number one overall pick, I believe that this is based on the Super Bowl odds. There we go. So don't get mad at the draft order. Get mad at the NFL or, you know, Vegas for it. But Arizona Cardinals taking Caleb Williams. I've gone ad nauseum about the fact that I think the Cardinals should take Caleb if they're at number one. I just think those quarterbacks who are true franchise guys, it doesn't matter the amount of picks that you offer. You're not going to be able to grab one. I mean, you can offer 7 first-round picks for Justin Herbert. I still don't think the Chargers are going to say okay. So why should you accept 3 first-round, 4 first-round, 5 first-round picks for Caleb Williams? I don't really get that. So at number 2, then they get Marvin Harrison as well. Cardinals are sitting there. Texans, I mean, a lot of people are saying they're not the second worst team in the NFL, and I totally agree. But the simple truth is that they're in the AFC. AFC's a bitch. So it's just unfortunate, but you know, the Arizona Cardinals are still a phenomenal team. I still think they're going to do, or not the Cardinals, excuse me, the Texans are still a really good team with some really good bones. They have some really good franchise cornerstones there. I think they're going to be perfectly fine, especially if, CJ Stroud works. But we'll see about that. I was a little bit more on the pessimistic side. Regardless, Tennessee Titans going at Drake May. It does look like Will Levis is not the best quarterback in the world, but, you know, we'll see. I mean, game time is way more important than, you know, throwing a ball into a little basket. I think he'll be perfectly fine in the long run. Still think that was a great pick by them anyways. I was so happy they didn't do that earlier, and they got Peter Skoronski. So overall, I still think their draft was awesome, even if Will Levis is a bust. But Drake May at this point would not be an awful selection. I'm much lower on Drake May at the moment, but my decisions aren't finalized till like all the tapes watched, and there's a lot of all 22 that needs to be released before, if I'm gonna make a finalized opinion, there needs to be a lot more released. And also there's all this next year and where he's going to be going to year 2. I think I'm super excited for that, and I believe that he's going to have another resurgence on my board. Colts going Joe Alt. I fully agree with that. In my own mock drafts, I'm pretty sure it's what I do. Buccaneers going Kool-Aid McKinstry. It's an interesting idea. I don't know exactly if corner is going to be the highest priority position, but if the Buccaneers are looking to go defensive back at this point, I think that Kool-Aid McKinstry in a very thin class has a significant gap compared to the next guy. Again, that's based on projection. There's not really any all 22 out at the moment. And y'all know my opinions on DBs and wide receivers, especially, are not finalized until all 22. So I'm not going to say it's a confirmed thing. Kool-Aid is the head and shoulders number 1. But based on the tape that I've seen on these other quarterbacks, there are corners that are getting some huge hype like Keelan King. I think that Kool-Aid has a big step up. So if he does have that big gap in terms of his talent in a very thin class, I could see him artificially being boosted into this tier. Bears then going Brock Bowers out of Georgia. So it is the Carolina Panthers pick that's projected at 6. I think that's a great move. If the Bears are able to nab Brock Bowers at pick 6, that's awesome. You could technically look to see, because I believe their other pick is at 11 or 12 based on Super Bowl odds. You could look at Olu Fashanu, but this is a really good tackle class too. So I'd be perfectly fine if they went after a super weapon in Brock Bowers, who probably shouldn't even be there at 6. Probably should have been the pick earlier. Washington Commanders going Olu Fashanu. Lo and behold, he's a great player. He boosted up my board. He is my left tackle number 2 overall, but my tackle number 4 at the moment. I have a tackles video out. You guys can check out that because I know it's going to irritate a lot of people, but I went into depth there as to why he is my tackle number 4. Again, left tackle number 2. So this is still perfectly in line with what I would do if the Commanders are looking for a pure left tackle. Falcons going Braylon Trice. He's a beast. He's great size, great production. and overall pretty damn good athletes. So I don't think that's a bad idea at all. They also brought in a couple of dudes who are 270 plus, and Calais Campbell and Bud Dupree, to be kind of like 1 year stints. I think this would be an amazing longer term option. Los Angeles Rams going Jerzon Newton. Interesting. I love Jerzon. UC, he's number 7 on my board. And number 9 is gone because of the fact that I'm right now updating this board to reflect my offensive tackle rankings. But I mean, y'all know my love for Jerzon Newton. Y'all know he is a monster. I think he's a beast, and he's the most underrated player as of last year. And I'm so happy he's starting to get hype right now. He's one of those guys who just pops off every single play. There's always something going on. I don't know what's going on with that Illinois team from last year, but they should have been way better. I have no idea why they were that cheeks. I seriously don't. They had some of the best DBs that I've seen in terms of an overall core of a GOAT team. You know the GOATs. You got Georgia, Bama up in there, Clemson arguably. You don't expect Illinois to be in there. And they're having better DBs than probably all of those schools combined. There's some really good players on there with Sidney Brown, Devon Witherspoon, obviously. I mean, number 5 or 6 overall pick. They had some really good dudes, and Jerzon Newton continues that list. There's another guy, Gabe Jacas. He is awesome. He was a true freshman and just absolutely lit it up. They have some dudes. So don't know what the hell happened there at Illinois, because they had a very, very good roster, especially on the defense. And their left tackle, I think, is an absolute stud in the right system with the right coaching. So they have some good guys on that team. But the Rams getting another stud defensive interior would be an excellent move, in my opinion. They've thrived based on Aaron Donald's dominance and being able to train somebody who has the technical upside of Jerzon Newton is certainly a great thing. Raiders in going Kalen King, spoke of him earlier. I think that he's one of the more overrated players. He just couldn't come close to the actual play of Joey Porter Jr. That's my honest opinion. That's also based heavily on that Ohio State game where I did watch his in all 22. And that's where I'm probably going to wait. The majority of my draft grade is, how do you perform against the best talent? He didn't perform well. He was very, very, very much worse than my number 2 player last year in Joey Porter Jr. New England Patriots going Emeka Egbuka. You know me, I have an affinity with Ohio State receivers going to New England. I'm going to be fully on board with this one. I think Emeka, he could have a little bit of an overlap role with Juju Smith-Schuster, but at the same time, I don't think anybody's going to complain with New England having more weapons at this point. That's just the way it is. Pick number 12, Steelers going Laiatu Latu. Again, if we end up losing out on Alex Highsmith, who just had, I believe, a 14.5 sack season, then this is certainly something that we will value. We love taking edge pretty damn highly, but we are apparently working a deal out with him. I think that we are probably going to reach it because Steelers like to keep their dudes. I think we have the highest paid defense, or the second highest paid. So we like to pay our defenders. And I think that's probably going to happen. If that's the case, obviously they're not going to go edge. But if we end up saying, hey, we want to save some money on the defensive side, let's put that money towards Kenny and all that stuff, then this is a great pick. He's somebody with an extremely high ceiling and crazy measurables. He's going to measure out like a beast. He has Kevin Durant length arms. I mean, not exactly, but when you watch him, his hands are like below his knees. This dude looks like he has unbelievable length and pause. But he also has really good bend, really good side pause. And it's just overall a really good player. I think he's going to be great. And especially with a great mentor like TJ Watt, he will be rising up my board. He's a great player. Just, I think that his power is where he's truly lacking, and he could be bullied by players. But if you do have the focus on a primary edge rusher like TJ Watt, I think he's going to survive and he's going to thrive. They have someone there, Grayson Murphy at UCLA, could be that type of dude who's taking a lot of the stress off Laiatu. Bears then going Jared Verse. It's an excellent pick. I think Jared Verse obviously should go above Laiatu, but at this point, arguing who should go before who is a little bit less valuable to you guys than knowing who they are. Is it a good fit? Because we don't know what the damn draft order is going to be. We don't know how these guys are going to play during the season. So basically, you guys can look at my board apart from the tackles and see exactly what I think in terms of where they should go versus, I have no pun intended, or versus where I can tell you guys why these fits are good, why I believe this is good here and there. But yeah, Bears getting Jared Verse. I had him as a top 10 player last year. Most people did. And Bears getting edge rusher help is always a plus. Giants then going Mason Smith. If he stays healthy, coming off an ACL tear after I think one snap last year, he's going to be a beast. He's 300 pounds, plays edge rusher, but probably should play inside. He's still beating out, LSU edge rushers. Those guys are, like I talked about, those GOAT teams. They recruit really well. So if someone who's 300 pounds can beat out a lot of those really good edge rushers, usually there's a reason why. And with BJ Ojolari leaving, you have Harold Perkins there. I think his name's Harold Perkins. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Number 40? I don't know. He's like 220 pounds, but he's an absolute wrecking ball. It would be pretty cool to see someone's like 225 and 300 pounds and just see how like crazy that distribution of weight is going to be. But regardless, Mason Smith, he's an incredible player. If you're able to beat out Harold Perkins, who was a true freshman, okay, let's leave it alone. But if he's able to beat out players like that in terms of talent, I think that we could assume that he's going to be a very good player. And New York Giants potentially could need somebody, but man, they have so much money invested on that defensive front. I highly doubt that they're going to, get Mason Smith up in there too. I'd rather go after a receiver. I'd rather go after just some form of weapon than be able to go after Mason Smith. My personal opinion. Green Bay Packers going Cooper Beebe. Don't think guard is necessarily a position they need to target. Just my personal opinion, they're really good at valuing interior offensive linemen down the board and getting good value there. I'd prefer to stick to my strengths and get the steals at interior and focus more on a tackle at this point if that is what you're trying to look for. Next, we have the Vikings going Jeremiah Trotter. I'm perfectly fine with that. With losing Eric Kendricks to the Chargers, I think that is a big loss to the identity of the team and a big reason why Vikings are not even projected to go to the playoffs. You lost the core of your defense. I know Harrison Smith's still there, but if there's going to be one other dude in that mix, it's going to be Eric Kendricks. It's a big shame that he's not there anymore. And it's pretty obvious. I think he's trying to ring chase with a team that he could elevate. But Vikings going Jeremiah Trotter would be an excellent move. I think that could certainly push them back into playoff contention. Broncos going Cameron Kinchins. I mean, I'm just curious, why is everybody going after safety for this team? I know DB is not an awful thing to do, especially because Broncos are known as like a no-fly zone. And Cameron Kinchins is awesome. But I just don't understand. They are so good at drafting these like third round safeties. I think Caden Stearns is there, if that's off the top of my head, but also like Jamar Johnson. They've been able to snipe dudes down the board. Again, stick to your strengths. I think they can draft DBs. I think they draft corners high very well. Obviously, Patrick Surtain's a great example of that. And they draft DBs down the line pretty damn well. I don't think you need to force a high pick on another defensive back. Low value position that you can draft really well later. Probably should draft him later. But regardless, Seattle Seahawks going Michael Penix Jr. We're seeing right now with one of the best talents that we saw coming out of the draft in Chase Young that regardless of how good you are, the best ability is availability. Michael Penix, I believe, has had 1 or 2 years out of 5 where he's been able to end off the year healthy. Multiple season-ending injuries. He's older. I love Michael Penix. But there's no way in hell you can justify it. I don't care what his stats are. If he's not on the field in the NFL, he's had 1 good year finally where he was healthy. Like you can't justify it. And I really want him to succeed. And I think the Seahawks would be a great destination for him. But I don't think it should be round 1. I think it could be round 6. And that sounds like a really dick thing to say. And I apologize for the people who get offended by that. But if you're not able to play, then you're not worth anything to the team. No disrespect again to Michael Penix, because I think he's a great person, great player. But business speaking, if you're not able to perform, why the heck are you getting a paycheck? Again, it's very, very, very rude and very, you look at them as a commodity. But that's unfortunately the contract you sign when you go to the NFL. You are a commodity for entertainment purposes. And again, as much as we want to debate that, it's still true. And we're seeing guys like Chase Young, who are absolutely incredible athletes with unbelievable talent, probably getting moved for like a next year third in Velus Jones. That's the quote I've heard out there. That's somebody who's worth number 2. He was selected number 2 overall. He has all that talent. He's a lot better than Michael Penix. I'm just saying, there's a lot better quarterbacks in this class too. And if you want to go down the road to Oregon, I think there's a lot better one in Bo Nix. And y'all know how much I didn't like Bo Nix. And I'm sticking my neck out for Bo Nix. Saints then going Johnny Wilson. I think there are better, larger receivers there. Troy Franklin, people keep bringing him up too. Absolute beast. I like Troy Franklin a lot. seriously different body type than Johnny Wilson, 6'7", like 260, versus, Troy Franklin is like 6'3", 180. Completely different dudes. But, Johnny Wilson's a fun one. He is not going to be a first round pick. I was able to see him in person because he played at Calabasas High, which was a rival of my school, Oaks. So I got to see Johnny Wilson, and he's a great player. But, guys who are running probably 4'6", 4'6'5", because he's pretty much a tight end that can run pretty fast, it's just not going to draft. You're not going to get drafted at 19 overall. And I would love to be proven wrong. Very well might be. But I think that Johnny Wilson probably not going to be drafted that high. Again, this is why I'd probably try not to include that on the list. But if this were a second round pick, and I'm all for Johnny Wilson succeeding, it would be awesome. He's going to be a great pairing with Chris Olave, who can, he's more of that nifty dude who can get deep, who can separate on routes. This is a guy where it's like, shit, where it's 4th and 1 or it's 4th and goal, and I need to just chuck a ball up. This is going to be the guy who I'd want to see. Absolutely. And I think he could be an absolute monster. But, it's just, again, I got to bring up the fact this dude's probably going to run a 4.6. Houston Texans then going Leonard Taylor. He's an absolute pass rushing pressure machine. That is exactly actually what I said in my notes when I was talking about Leonard Taylor during the year. Statistically, he's a monster, and on the field, he is too. Big fan of Miami in general. Y'all know from my video I did with Broshmo last year that I had the U pretty highly. I'm, again, a big U fan. So I'm a little bit biased there, but based on his play as well, he's a beast. And I would love to see the Texans continue to develop a defensive line with some really big studs. Chargers going at right tackle, Kingsley Suamataia. I love the idea. I think Kingsley's a little bit too unathletic to be able to play right tackle in the NFL. He's a really fun player to watch. He's a good player as well. I would just say probably kick him to the inside. I think that's going to be his best spot if you want him to have the best career. Next, we have Rome Odunze to the Jaguars. I think that they are not really much of a need for a wide receiver like Rome. If Calvin Ridley ends up working out, you have Christian Kirk, who's actually been kind of worth close to his contract. He's been able to carry a lot of weight in a pretty poor receiving core. I know that there might be some people who are disagreeing with that, but I mean, you got to admit, Christian Kirk played better than what we expected. So they at least got something there in Christian Kirk and hopefully Calvin Ridley. Rome's going to be a great addition to this team. The question is that the best move for them? It really depends on how good the offensive line is. They just spent a pick on Anton Harrison, but God only knows if Cam Robinson's going to be there long term. I know they gave him a contract. We don't know how Walker Little's going to play out. Jawan Taylor's gone. So for me, I would be a little bit more concerned, and y'all know my bias for O-line anyway, in going that way, but I still think it's a fine pick. I just have to bring up some counter arguments there because that's what I have to do. It's to bring up some good counter arguments. Otherwise, you can literally just read this. Why do you need me, right? Miami Dolphins going Dallas Turner. This could be a spot where he ends up going. There's actually some pessimism towards him in the industry. I'm going to wait before that happens because I still think that I want to see him as a true edge one before I make finalized comments. But he didn't step up the way, in terms of consistency, the way that Will Anderson did. And there's a reason why I have him at 5 on my board instead of 1. I am being very optimistic, but I also don't think he's Will Anderson. And I think he's fine. I think he's a very good player. I don't know if the Dolphins need to go after an edge rusher like Dallas Turner after basically spending a first rounder last year on him, but I'm not going to complain. Miami Dolphins, they can do whatever the hell they want. They're going to do what they're going to do. Detroit Lions going KJ Jefferson. And it's just going after the QBs I'm not a huge fan of. KJ is a fun dude to watch. I obviously watched Big Ben for a long time. I'm used to these big quarterbacks who can truck a dude. And, he's a fun guy to watch on the field. But one, he doesn't really fit what the Lions are looking for. I don't think he's ever had any issues in terms of his personality. I'm not saying that because, you have Hendon Hooker there, which some people say should be the starter eventually. Some people say he's a really good bridge quarterback. Some people think he's going to be a super high quality backup for the next 4 years. Do whatever you want. I don't know if he's going to be a super high upside starter, but I also think that KJ Jefferson's significantly worse than him. So I think that going KJ Jefferson here would be a mistake. I don't trust his actual arm strength. The zip is just not there. And I think that could be due to mechanics, but I'm just not really in the mood to wait on a quarterback. If I'm sitting here at 24, I don't want a quarterback with mechanical issues if they're having issues with the ball velocity because of it. Like, I don't want to be able to have to wait on a quarterback completely changing his throwing mechanics to be able to actually throw an NFL ball. That's not what you draft at 24. It's what you draft at 240. So that's just my take right there. Getting a little bit pessimistic on these QBs, but I think there's some great ones here. If you want to go after the big guy who can run, who has a big arm, that's Joe Milton. And you know what? They're not that far in age. I think it might be a 2-year difference, which is a difference. But I think Joe Milton is an absolute stud. Y'all see where he is on my board. He will eventually be number 9. But there's going to be some dudes moving up. You guys have to check out that tackle video because, I had some dudes that you probably have never even heard of and you probably won't hear of during the season. But I think that there's some monsters there. Baltimore Ravens going Cooper DeJean. Who am I to disagree with the Ravens actually going after a star DB? Cooper DeJean's over 6 foot. He's over 200 pounds as well. I think he's over 210 pounds. So you're getting an absolute unit of a physical freak. And I love Iowa corners, so not going to complain. I think Baltimore Ravens also could be looking for a future at corner. And they're willing to be able to take guys who could be potentially a safety. So I think this is a great pick. If he's there, I think it's a great pick. Barrett Carter going to the Jets. I talked to Broshmo about this one, and not about this pick specifically, but about Barrett Carter. He was talking to me about his eval on him. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but he reminds him of 2 other Clemson linebackers and doesn't really know where to put them between the 2. And I think you guys can kind of tell which 2 those would be in terms of athletic linebackers that are still trying to put it together. But Barrett Carter, he is a fun one. I would love to see him in the... you all know me. I have an affinity for linebackers on the Jets. So, I'm never going to disagree with this. Cowboys going J.C. Latham. I think this would be an excellent move for the Cowboys if I were higher on J.C. I have an issue with his motor. I think he stands around way too much. I think he gives up way too quickly. And that could be an easy switch. But y'all know me. I'm very, very, very keen on the players who give up. I don't like it. I really don't. As someone who played football, I know I don't look like it right now, but as someone who played for 7 years, I understand that it takes a lot to be able to get on the field. So I don't understand when you're on the field why you're not putting 100% out there. There's so many dudes who would be so grateful for that spot. And you're potentially putting guys like Bryce Young, who is really small, in a very dangerous position. For me, I'm not a fan of that. So that's why I'm a bit lower on J.C. Latham, but if he gets his head wired together, I think that he is going to be perfectly fine, and I do think right tackle is a good position to go after. Michael Hall Jr. to the Bengals. I really hate the fact that the Bengals are getting better and better defensive lines, but luckily the Steelers are continuing to develop their offensive line. You guys don't know, I am a Steelers fan, so going defensive line, never a bad thing. Y'all, of course, stole my number 4 overall player in the draft at your draft pick last year, so RIP to my Steelers line, but it is what it is. And also the Cleveland Browns got the one dude who absolutely destroyed Broderick Jones last year in Isaiah McGuire. But let's not talk about that either. But yeah, Michael Hall's not going to be a bad selection at all for you. Defensive interior is not bad. I would prefer to potentially look at a right tackle there, of course. But defensive line is always valuable. You look at the contracts now, these guys are getting paid $20 to $25 million a year for the good ones. Speaking of a team that signed a defensive interior to close that deal, that was Javon Hargrave. Niners going a cornerback here. Another team that I think right tackle should be the position they target. And I'll say this, I like to bring up offensive line a lot. And a lot of times there's a big lack of the quality of tackles in the draft. Again, watch the video because for the first time I think that I've ever studied the draft, we have a significant amount of right tackles that are competent. And that's amazing to see. I'd love to see that. I think that, again, there's a guy named Fuaga. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name from memory right now, or his first name from memory right now. Oregon State. He's my number 2 tackle in the class. He is awesome. He fits exactly what the Niners would want. Powerful, mobile. He whiffs. That's my big issue with him. A lot of these tackles take risks. Some of them sometimes don't really get the better end of the deal. And I think with the right coaching and the right mentorship, that could be coached out pretty easily. And, I'm willing to take the positive side of that. And I think that would be great for the Niners. Bills going Kalen Bullock. I think that is spectacular. Safety core. definitely not the youngest it has ever been. Eagles then going Arati Getson. Second time I've seen this dude. So when all 22 comes out, I want to study him much more in depth. Again, I want to see the route running intricacies. There is I think it's called First Down Scout on Instagram. He does a lot of quarterback. It's First Down something. He's done a lot of quarterback and wide receiver mechanics videos. And I think that's amazing for you guys who are trying to understand the mechanics a bit more. He's one of those dudes who, like, I've used his mechanics in my throwing drills, in my route running stuff. And that sounds super lame because I'm not actually doing it for sport. I'm doing it for fun. But even for a guy like me who has stuff like tennis elbow, it really has helped. And what he says is very true. You get to see it with quarterbacks in the NFL, the rotation of the hips, and, the mechanics are truly awesome to see picked apart by someone who understands it like that. So highly recommend that. And that's also why I'm a lot more meticulous on my receiver grading, because I want to see how you release off the line. I want to see how you break on a route. And I think that's going to be very telltale, and you need all 22 for that. So that's why I don't give full-on opinions of wide receivers, but I think the Eagles could use a wide receiver 4. Don't think they would use a first-round pick on that. I think ultimately, I've heard some great things about Tyler Steen, like Brandon Brooks comps from the guys in the locker room. I think actually Jason Kelsey was the one who dropped it. But this is a team still probably looking for an RB1. Hate to say it, but it's probably true. And then you still could be looking for linebackers. You're not going to spend the number 31 pick on it. So don't worry. I'm not saying that, but, trade back candidate right there. There's just other positions maybe I would look at. Free safety. Most of them are already gone, so I'll give you all a pass. But I think that just maybe it's a little bit better than a wide receiver 4. But, I'm excited to be able to watch this guy because this is not the first time I've been introduced to this dude here. 6'5". I mean, that's pretty damn awesome. Kansas City Chiefs then ending off the draft with a cornerback, DJ James out of Auburn. I have not studied DJ James, to be completely transparent. Again, I wait for all 22 tape before I start really making opinions on defensive backs. So that's where it's going to end. I know, a little bit underwhelming because of the fact that I can't give you guys a full opinion on this. I think the Chiefs should be looking defensive interior, maybe another wide receiver, but I know a lot of people love Rashee Rice. Want to always hype up my boy. I know that the Hunts family really loves SMU as well. You got Shane Buechele there, as well as now Rashee Rice. Also, the Hunts kid goes to SMU, so pony up. Gotta love that. But I still think that they could be looking maybe for another weapon in case we do not see the emergence of a weapon like Mecole Hardman's already, I think he's actually over in New York, but Kadarius Toney. So that's going to be the video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys on the far side.